Hi, and welcome to Feature Fridays. My name is Guy Bartram, Director of Product Marketing, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Sashi Bats. Sashi, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sachi. I'm Technical Product Manager with VMware. I'm mainly focusing on Tanzu integration with VMware Cloud Director products.
Awesome, and that's what we're here to talk about today, the release of Container Service Extension 3.1.1. And the cool new capabilities it brings to our cloud providers. So as we go through this presentation today and this chat, let's kind of just put ourselves in the shoes of a cloud provider who's got VCD today and is looking at starting their journey with Tanzu Basic, which is now included in the Flex Core. So it's basically free within those 7 points. So how would they leverage this CSE and Tanzu and deliver a Kubernetes service? Let's kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, sure. So CSE 3.1.1 brings in a lot of new features that supports TKG M clusters deployment support, and brings in functions to automate ingress load balancing, provide support for persistent volumes, and name the disk for the Kubernetes cluster. And the highlight is that we can, without making any changes in underlying infrastructure, if you have, say, VCD 10.3.1 release, NSXT advanced load balancer with basic licensing, and the NSXT for networking, you can actually introduce container service extension and start providing Kubernetes as a service, or enable your customers to self-service the Tanzu Kubernetes clusters using container service extension. And for this, you don't need to install TKGM management cluster. So the way it will work is you have your underlying infrastructure, your VCD, NSXT, VC, advanced load balancer. On top of that, you are going to install container service extension that will provide you the the Kubernetes orchestration. And right now we don't need TKGM management cluster separately to run those TKG clusters.
Okay, so if I've got a production estate already and I'm delivering VCD infrastructure services, this is download the CSE plugin, deploy the plugin in VCD, make sure my vSphere level out there is up to the level that supports Tanzu, and turn it on. I think you have to actually turn it on each host, if I remember rightly.
So for this, you don't need to make any changes to your underlying infrastructure.
Okay.
So right now, all the orchestration is taking place by container service extension. So we don't need to go and enable vSphere with Kubernetes, or any additional configuration on VC is not required today.
Okay, so that's cool. So I can actually just create an org VDC and just start, boom, off I go. Kubernetes is here.
That's exactly right.
Okay, that's great. Okay,
yeah.
So, all right, so just to rewind, delivering infrastructure, so VCD, I've got my PVDCs, my customers with their org VDCs. I'm going to deploy the container service extension. I'm going to then just automatically in VCD then be able to deliver a Kubernetes cluster in an org VDC for my customer.
Yes, that is correct.
Cool. And right, so we'll just let the nomenclature, let's go through the nomenclature here. So I've got Tanzu Basic, which is included in the Flex Core, and then we've got Tanzu Standard, which is coming soon. But in this scenario, we're only talking Tanzu Basic. And we're talking about Tanzu Kubernetes Grid M for multi-tenant.
Yeah.
We're not worrying about the TKG-S component. It's just all TKG-M from now on.
Yes.
Okay.
TKG-M actually in Tanzu world, it means multi-cloud, but we are for Tanzu Basic, we only support vSphere on-prem infrastructure.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. Yeah. All right, let's dive into it then.
Sure. I have a couple of slides that I would like to cover.
Sure.
All right. All right. So these are the three main introductions or new updates to CAC 311. CAC 311 will work with VMware Cloud Director Release 10.3.1. And we are introducing two main plugins to automate storage and load balancing. One is the CPI plugin that will work in conjunction with NSXT Advanced Load Balancer to create virtual services for your applications that's running on the Kubernetes cluster. And the CSI plugin will work to provide persistent volume or named disk on your existing storage when you are creating the volumes on the Kubernetes cluster. And for CSE native, we have we are dropping support for Photon OS, but on the other end, for TKG cluster support, we allow our customers to upload the official TKG supported templates to the catalog that is going to be consumed by Container Service Extension. So we are basically letting the provider select the templates from the official VMware download site. These are all the TKG official templates that you can get, and then use those templates to provide production ready Kubernetes clusters using CSE.
Got it. And just the CPI, so this is NSXT Advanced Load Balancing, the AVI solution, which is integrated with VCD.
Yes.
This is doing the container ingress load balancing?
Yeah, so we still need to install the ingress controller. It can be Nginx or Contour, but what CPI introduces is automated load balancing configuration on VCD. So when you install ingress controller or additional applications like WordPress or any other application that requires ingress access, what this CPI will work with NSXT LB is that we'll create NAT rule and load balancing service. So it will actually map it to the external network that's available to the customer organization. So we are basically, without any human intervention, we are going to create those virtual services which can be accessed by customers externally.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
persistent volumes, I mean, that's kind of like a new thing for containers, which were obviously previous like non-persistent, and now having persistent storage is going to really help with the kind of longevity of those containers.
That is correct. So you can use persistent volumes to persist some data on the cluster. You can actually enable data protection or backup those important information that's using the persistent volume. You can actually persist to disks and recreate that later in case your pod gets deleted.
And this is, I guess, where the new object storage extension plugin for VCD comes in, with that ability to back up containers.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And not only that, we have transformation control generally available today to our partners through Cloud Partner Navigator. So in case you are managing this cluster, which by the way is supported, you can attach this TKG cluster to transformation control and install the agents, all the agents from the transformation control. You can enable data protection on TMC to perform backup and restore of the whole namespace or persistent volumes and restore it at any point in case it's required.
Okay, so multiple options there for doing this. Is TKG, is that at a cost for service providers? Sorry, transmission control. Is that a cost, or is that a free? I know they need an MSP contract to get it, but is it a zero cost contract?
No, I think you need to sign up for some term subscription before you can access TMC.
Okay, so maybe the starting point, maybe it would be to look at OSE, if you want to trial the backup of persistent volumes, then object storage extension, the latest version will do that.
Yes.
And then if you want to do kind of more and get more visibility, then look at Tanzu Mission Control.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Tanzu Mission Control also brings in a lot of added values where you can manage policies, registry support, and a lot of additional features.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. The next one is I'll cover a few updates to how a container service installation takes place today. So on a high level, step one is to install container service extension on your server. Then you create a config file to connect to your VMware Cloud Director. And then you upload some templates on the catalog on your VMware Cloud Director. And these templates are the Kubernetes templates. It can be native templates that is provided by Container Service Extension. These are the native ones that you can see under a remote template cookbook URL. This is for the native support, whereas you can separately upload TKG templates that you can download from official VMware site, download site. So these.
Tell me, Sergey, if I was new to this, what would be the benefit then of looking at those default Kubernetes native templates versus Tanzu? What would be the difference there?
Yeah, so the native templates, these are upstream Kubernetes templates. They support like TKG introduces added benefits of having advanced load balancing capabilities, persistent volume. The TKG templates are managed and hardened by the Tanzu community. So you get support on those TKG templates when you are running those clusters. Whereas upstream Kubernetes clusters are the basic Kubernetes templates. They don't have the integrated load balancing. You have to actually manage those rules manually on VMware Cloud Director.
Right, and then your support is community support, best effort sort of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the template that we talked about. For TKG template, we are removing dependency on the underlying infrastructure. So we don't need to communicate to VC to import these templates. So we introduced a new mode for TKG specifically, where we say that VC communication is not required. All this is built into the configuration specification that will connect to your VMware Cloud Director. Once the install is complete, you can run the Kubernetes server, and you can actually upload the templates to your VMware Cloud Director and then start providing the services. In order to, so now I'll be moving over to what additional rights are required to run these services in the tenant organization. We have added a few more rights for each capability. First one, for the persistent volume support, we need to allow the tenant user or a user who is going to manage this Kubernetes cluster to create a shared disk. So this will allow them to create a named disk when the volume is being created from the Kubernetes cluster. And authentication will happen through the API token for the specific user. So we need to allow this right that says manage users own API tokens. Okay. And the tenant admin can probably have all users API tokens, but for cluster author role, at least we need this own API token role to be available to the user. Yeah. For the CPI plugin, we need access to the gateway to view the gateway and actually configure the NAT rule and the load balancer so that these load balancing services and NAT rules are automated and authorized for this user role. So in case these, like after these rights are published to your user, you can now deploy a Kubernetes cluster. And this is just a revision to what we have published to our cluster role already. So,
Yeah.
so these are the things that will be required for the users in the customer organization. Once these rights are available to them, they can now use container service extension, the UI plugin, and start deploying the clusters.
Okay, cool. And I guess these are rights you'd need to set for every tenant that's going to have Kubernetes as a cluster services, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So I'll walk through that in the demo when it comes. It's very easy to publish the rights bundles. It's a one-time operation when you onboard your customer organization onto ECD.
Okay.
We will go through networking and load balancing in next session. So first one is we with container service extension with NSXT and advanced load balancer, there is no need to change your underlying infrastructure. You can deploy the Kubernetes clusters using your local routed, isolated, or the direct connected network.
Mm-hmm.
In this release, we are also introducing a new option to actually automate the NAT rule creation. So in case a customer is using routed network to deploy Kubernetes cluster, and they would like to allow inbound access to this cluster for services access, the NAT rule can be created automatically by CSC. So you don't have to, and this NAT rule is managed, its life cycle is also managed by CSC. So once you delete the cluster, that rule will be deleted. So this allows tenant user to expose the cluster while they are creating the cluster.
Got it.
Yeah. And the next one is load balancing. So this is completely new in CSE 311. So in case you have NSXT advanced load balancer with basic license, you can consume that today in conjunction with CPI plugin on the CSE. The only requirement here is that when we create the service engine policy, it has to be dedicated per tenant when we create the service engine group.
Okay, so there is I think there's a limit in the number of service engine groups you can have per instance of the advanced load balancer. So that may be something to consider architecturally when you're looking at this as well, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And in the demo, we will see how we are going to create NAT rule and the virtual services on demand when we deploy any application.
Okay.
Yeah. And these are considerations for upgrade to CSE 311. As a recap, CSE 311 works with VCD version 10.3.1. And we have introduced TKG in CSE version 3.0.4. In case you are planning to upgrade from that to 311, there are some steps that's available. So first of all, we would like you to back up the cluster, as in if you have any stateful application that you would like to preserve, you can take a backup of the cluster and then delete all the clusters. You delete any association with your CSE that's running on the old version. You remove the VM placement policy, and then you can upgrade the container service extension, upload all the new templates that's available to you from the VMware customer portal, and restart the CSE, and then you can start using CSE on 311 release.
So this looks like quite an operation actually. Is this documented on the
Yes.
the user guides and things like that. Okay, right.
So right now, this is documented on the official GitHub website. That also lists all the supported VCD versions, all the guided supported templates, and also all the guidelines for how to use upgrade and things like that.
Okay.
Okay.
And is there a chance that, you know, users before who have got 3.0.4 maybe have made changes to kind of placement policies? Are they going to be able to then put those changes back in? Are they going to have to do that manually?
So the placement policies will be created by the placement policy will be created once you upgrade the CSE to 311. So you don't have to manually create those policy. The upgrade will take care of it.
Yeah, but if I've made any edits to the policy before, I guess you need to kind of re-edit the new policies when they're deployed.
That is correct. The VM placement policy to deploy TKG cluster is mainly managed by CSE. So most likely, in case you have customized this, you need to redo that after the upgrade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to back up the clusters, is that a question of, sorry, I'm trying to work out how to actually do a backup here of the stateful clusters. If you haven't got OSE, or you can use a third-party backup solution, I guess, to back it up. Is that what we're suggesting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Any Kubernetes supported backup process can be used to back up your stateful application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Okay. Now we can dive into the demo. Give me just a second. All right. So right now I'm logged into VMware Cloud Director, and I have installed a container service extension, and the UI plugin is also upgraded to support TKG templates deployment. So this is the version for UI plugin, and the rights bundles can be published from the administration. We have this native entitlement. On top of that, you can also add the rights we spoke about in the presentation. So CSE native cluster entitlement will have the rights bundles necessary to run these capabilities. So in case you are enabling your customer organization to use the CPI and CSI plugins, you can actually publish these additional rights from the provider portal. So I am just highlighting those one more time where you can find them. And
so as a provider, then I can make it optional for them to have access to CPI and CSI.
that is correct. So only customers who are going to use so this provides little flexibility to your provider that they can select in case whether they want to publish TKG cluster rights to your customer or not. So
no, what I'm saying is you could say, right, you've got access to TKG cluster, but you haven't got access to load balancing for that cluster.
For TKG, it requires that you need load balancer, but
the NSX advanced load
this is
balancer.
added service, so they have option to actually. So this holds true for persistent volume. I'm not sure about the load balancer, so we can use the example of persistent volume.
Okay.
Yeah. So this gives a provider some flexibility where you can provide specific capabilities to your customer. For example, you want to allow your customer to use persistent volume creation. So you can go and allow your user to actually have the shared disk support, and then the using the which one was that? The API token, what was that? Under general, yeah. So as a in case you want to publish a persistent volume support, you can actually allow your user to have create a shared disk, or and on top of that manage their own API tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So these roles are needed to create persistent volume disk. So once, so provider has option to actually have added service to your cluster.
Yeah.
So this gives them option. Yeah.
So it could be a nice upsell for a service. Yeah. Okay, that's what I was trying to understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's something how you can do from the rights bundle. And now let's see the cluster creation workflow. Before that, I would like to show you what I have set up for a load balancer. So over here, I have AVI controller. This license can be basic to work for the ingress load balancing for Tanzu Basic. I have created NSXT clouds and my service engine groups. And then, as you mentioned, we can have up to maximum 100 virtual services.
Mm-hmm.
And then once this is configured, customer provider can log into their customer portal and enable load balancing. So something they can do it by logging into the tenant portal, navigating to networking, edge gateways, and over here they can enable load balancer and then provide service engine group access. So once this is set up by provider, everything will be automated starting from this point on. Okay.
So you could set up service engines for service engine groups for each customer if you wanted to, and then not give them access also if you chose to, but upsell them access to a service engine group and then enable it in here so they could actually start using it.
Yeah. So this will use CPI. This will work with CPI to automate the ingress load balancing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now we can log into the tenant portal to see the customer experience, to create a Kubernetes cluster. So let's open the tenant portal. All right. So I'm now logged into tenant portal using Kubernetes cluster author. And then I will navigate to Kubernetes container clusters. This is the UI plugin that my provider has allowed access to. Mm-hmm. So now you can see two tiles just with the CAC install. One is native. So this is for upstream Kubernetes. You can use this for POC or testing purposes. And these are production ready VMware Tanzu Kubernetes grid specific clusters that you can create. So the templates, these are uploaded from CAC template import command. So you can manually upload all the versions that you would like to offer to your customers. All the TKG supported templates can be used here from TKG suite. So let's call it a demo cluster. select org VDC. You can select the number of nodes. You can use sizing policy, or you can provide manual values for your CPU and memory resources. So this is something cool. We don't have to create a sizing policy in case you were to use custom values.
Yep.
Create, provide a storage profile. And then this option will actually create a NAT rule to expose your routed network clusters IP with external IP that's dedicated to your customer organization. So this is very efficient. And then you can also customize the pod and service networks. We review the information, and that's all.
And it'll give you the external IP when it's complete, or you go into the settings and have a look and see what it was?
Yeah. So right now this cluster is being created. Let's look at the cluster that's already been created to showcase what NAT rule is going to look like. Okay. So when we click on the deployed cluster, we can see the control plane gateway IP. When we enable the expose the cluster option, this IP is going to be fetched from the available external network IP pool in your organization. Okay. So to see that rule, we can navigate to networking. We can go to edge gateways and look at the NAT rule. So over here, we noted down the IP. I think it was 10.150.180.133. And you can see this got created by CSE plugin.
Right.
And when we delete a cluster, this rule will be deleted as well.
And if it's accidentally deleted in the meantime, is CSE monitoring it and will recreate it like we had before with the network groups?
No, that functionality is not there yet.
Okay, right. So don't delete it.
Because, yeah, because there we are actually using a VC refresh as a trigger. So when we reconnect,
oh, I see. Yeah.
Here there is no trigger to actually check. But you brought up a good point. We can take it back to engineering.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at a cluster that we already have meanwhile. So like before, we can download the kubeconfig of any cluster that we deployed. And then whatever ingress applications or ingress controllers that we deployed, we can see those virtual IPs are being updated over here.
Yeah.
And one additional thing what we do is per cluster, we secure the ingress access to these applications. So for that, my cluster author needs to upload a new certificate to your certificate library. We can do that by copying this cluster ID, going to administration, and then in the certificates library, you need to upload that certificate over here by the name of the cluster ID. So in case, so this will secure your ingress access to your Kubernetes clusters application.
And this is a manual step, right?
Yeah, as of now, this is a manual step. I'm sure this process will be improved over time.
Okay.
Okay. So let's look at the cluster that we deployed, right? So over here. So I have already downloaded my kubeconfig, and I have loaded it in my local kubeconfig file over here. And we can take a closer look at the pods that got created when we deployed the cluster. So a bare Kubernetes cluster will come with CNI, the Entria core DNS, the CSI plugin, and the CPI plugin over here. So once the cluster is in up and running mode, we can see all the nodes over here. And then in this example, I have also installed Nginx ingress controller, and we can see the services. And then we can see the external IP. So when I installed the ingress controller over here, what happens is two things will happen on the customer portal. Number one is again on the edge gateway in the NAT section. Actually, we can show the virtual services first. So when we install the ingress controller, in this example, it was Nginx, we can see that virtual service is created for ingress controller for two services, HTTP and HTTPS. Also, to expose these virtual services with external network IP, we create a NAT rule. So we can again navigate to the NAT section, and over here we can look at the ingress controller NAT IP over here. So I'm trying to showcase the IP. Yeah. So over here we can see that for the ingress controller.
That's all automatic. That's pretty cool.
That's all automatic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
And then on top of that, whatever applications you deploy, in this example, I have deployed 2 WordPress applications. So we can see the external IPs are being mapped. And then for each of these applications, additional NAT rules are also present on your edge gateway. So you can see 135 being mapped for the services, even 134 and 136. Yep. So all these are automated. And when you delete those applications, the life cycle of these virtual services and NAT will follow through that.
It's a good little time saver, isn't it?
Yes. And in case you were to use the persistent volume, you need to create a storage class file. So over here, I have already specified that. You can find this on the CSE GitHub, for example, storage definition. So once you provide this, you can actually see the storage class defined for your Kubernetes cluster. So once this storage class is created, you can start consuming this class to create disks on your Kubernetes cluster. And once you create the persistent volume disk, you can start noticing them over here under the Kubernetes cluster.
And there's nothing special about that storage, right? It's just the part of the PVDC.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it uses paravirtual SCSI disk to create the storage. So underlying infrastructure has to support that. Yeah, but there is nothing added configuration required from provider today. Right. And then when we create additional disks, you can notice it here, or under the applications, you can list out all the named disk.
And can you then apply like the storage IOPS controls and things like that on there?
So I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the main features that got introduced in CSE 311, and it brings in a lot of value because we never had a automated load balancing
Yeah.
on ECD for the Kubernetes services. So I'm pretty excited how customers are going to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to confirm, right, that was you had an enterprise license of NSX Advanced Load Balance there, but it would work with the basic license, because
Yes.
I know the enterprise is quite a considerable cost.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. All this will work for earlier for L4 load balancing with basic today. So there is no added licensing required for at least CPI to work.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah, I agree. I think it's getting to a point now where you know, you're looking at, well, creating serious production grade applications that require load balancing, that require persistence and backup and things like that. That's
Yes.
all now nicely tied together with CSE and OSE as well, providing the backups potentially.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Listen, Sashi, thank you so much for showing us through the 311 updates. I think that's it's really exciting to see the product come on.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem. Cheers.
Cheers.